Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we've got a special guest from Origin Protocol, and that's one of the senior engineers, Stan. How you going, Stan?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks. I'm excited to talk about your marketplace and everything you guys are doing today. There's plenty of our fans that are close followers of yours, but for those that
Nice.
haven't followed Origin Protocol, what are you doing in a nutshell?
We are, in a sense, turning several, what you might call, billion-dollar industries of, Airbnb, eBay, Uber, et cetera, all the, sharing economy companies, and turning them into a protocol. And I always like the example of, email. There is no email Inc. that, makes the email standard that everyone uses and, that makes a lot of money off of every email that you send. Email is just a protocol, and Gmail uses it, and Outlook, and Yahoo Mail, and everything. And as long as you conform to the standard, you can send and receive email. And with the power of blockchain, there's no reason that such a protocol can't also work for things like, listing a home for rent, or selling something, or offering yourself as a driver.
Yeah, do you want to talk about maybe the history behind this and how we got to this situation where it's quite centralized and siloed, and then how your solution is sort of solving those problems and how it's going to
Hmm.
help end users?
Yeah. I mean, I could go on about this for quite a while, quite a ways, but it's kind of a historian of the internet might say how, in the early days, the original vision for the internet and for the web was all around open standards. Things like that we use every day, even without knowing. HTTP, TCP. Under the hood, websites you visit are using things like FTP and other acronyms, and these standards were just created as a way for computers and people to be able to exchange information and communicate. And this this move for standards kind of lost steam with the commercialization of the web. In the early 2000s, I know it's hard to say, where companies realized that if they sort of went the opposite way and had no interaction and just put up walls, and instead of trying to make the data exchangeable, instead tried to build a wall around it,
Mm.
that you could make a lot of money this way. And so there's no way that you could like, if you have an improvement for Airbnb, say some amazing UI feature, something that would make tons of lives better, you can't add that to the Airbnb interface. You can't make a new interface to Airbnb, which is better. Um, if you try to kind of take the hacker route and kind of move and build it anyways, they'll sue you at Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
Uh, and same thing, even relatively, quote, good companies, say like Craigslist in the US, which is not super profit oriented. If you try to use their data in some way and present it in some other fashion, you will get a takedown notice as well. And so it's just this sort of amazing thing that with blockchain, it offers this. In a nutshell, the problem, there is no place to store the fact that I have a bike for rent. There is no way to store that information somewhere that no one owned. And the fact that you always had to have someone owning where you store that information led to this, centralization. And that was kind of the key thing with blockchain. Is now there's kind of a database out there that nobody owns, and so you can just put a fact out into the universe. I have a bike for rent. I have an apartment for rent. I want a ride to the airport.
Yeah, I think it was a slow moving beast, and all of a sudden we have a few tech giants that have all our data and that really benefit the most. So, what do you guys think about that privacy and all the, we see Facebook being dragged in front of Congress and all that sort of thing? How do you guys see this playing out in the future?
Yeah, it's I mean, I certainly am not a prophet of this, and I don't know if we at Origin claim to know how it's all going to go. So, with that
Yeah,
caveat,
yeah.
but I think if nothing else, all of this has kind of exposed the myth of privacy that was going on. That one of the reasons to use, like, one of the advantages, so to speak, of one of these using a giant company, Airbnb or Facebook or Uber, like, oh, we're going to keep your data safe. We're not going to do anything with it. And then it turns out that kind of behind the scenes, like, so to speak, behind closed doors, they're selling your data every which way. And I think that has people looking for an alternative and questioning the wisdom of putting all of your, information or privacy eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Yeah. So let's talk about the marketplaces and the ability for creators to build their own. Do we want, let's say that we do list that bike, for example. How will that work if I then search for a bike? Is there a situation where we can have too many marketplaces, or we're hoping that there's a few good options, or how does that sort of work?
It's hard to say how it will play out. What we're imagining is if you have kind of this infinite listing or bulletin board, say, where you can like post that you've got a bike for sale, which is the blockchain. Yeah. Any DApp or website, whatever, is kind of free to surface any of those listings that they choose to. And when it comes to something like, I want to sell my bike, I don't really care, how that fact gets out in the world. If it shows up in one person's app over here and someone's little mobile app over here, and it's a website here, it doesn't matter, as long as the bike gets sold, and as long as I get connected with the buyer. And when I'm connected, I can trust that they are who they say they are, and they have a good reputation, et cetera. So we think it'll be kind of a, let 1,000 flowers bloom situation.
It's really about the user experience, isn't it? And if they don't like one DApp, they know that they can use another one, and the same item or services are going to be there in the background if they're plugging in to the blockchain. So what are the other use cases, or currently people that are building on it, that you see that are going to be out there first?
We're definitely still in the early stages, but some of the exciting things, we've got a marketplace out there specifically for crypto art, which is something new to me. I didn't realize how much of a cut, when an artist sells a piece of artwork in a gallery or traditional things, there's like huge cut is taken. So that was a really interesting thing for me, for artists to be able to list their artwork online that way. And now we're looking into gift cards. There's a lot of like gift card exchanges, and that's something people want to buy and sell with crypto. And there's just like a lot of creative ideas going around.
Are you going down the task economy route at all, or is that one of the industries you see being the biggest in the future, even if there aren't people tinkering with that at the moment on your platform?
I think that's one of the biggest ones in the future. It's one that, again, I'm not a economist or business expert here, but it seems that it's not one that's going to hit early, because it's one of those chicken and egg ones that you need a lot of people offering to work in order to get a lot of people looking for it. It seems that early on it'll be something more simpler that's going to hit.
I think a lot of projects are finding, as you just say, it's that onboarding and hitting that critical mass. So what sort of things do you guys have in the works to get those users on board?
Yeah, we I think, sound a little arrogant, I think more than many companies, we've put a tremendous effort into the just simple user interface of the onboarding process, so that if someone shares a link to a non-crypto person, that they can get onboarded and buy some crypto and actually complete the deal. We've recently completed that all of our listings now can also be listed in fiat using stable coins. So for the average person, it's hard to comprehend, like, oh, this bike costs whatever, 2 ETH. I can't quite picture that. So now it's starting to look, this sounds kind of funny, but it starts to look more like a traditional marketplace, where they can see like, oh, there's a bike, it's $500. I get that, I make an offer. So we're making big strides on that front.
Yeah, we've been big fans of Maker, and I saw you guys recently had that DAI integration, so it certainly makes things easier for people rather than looking at 0.001 Bitcoin and all that sort of thing. So do you want to talk a bit more about all the other plans for the token and its utility?
For our token, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. It's going to be involved in, well, right now we're running a Origin rewards program right now, so people can get some OGN for just basically creating an identity, which is we figured out is pretty much like ground zero for bootstrapping a marketplace. You have to know who people are.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy something from someone, you need to know that they're a real person and if they have any history of transactions, et cetera. So that's kind of the first step. We use it right now to boost listings. So going back to what I said before about I don't care who sells my bike as long as they bring me a qualified buyer. In order to increase the chances of that happening, when I create a listing, I can use OGN to boost that listing. And that basically serves as, so to say, a tip for the app or the marketplace that sort of completes the deal. And so that's my incentive for them to promote it or show it or to get better at, we've identified this person's looking for a bike. We're going to show them Stan's bike because we get a cut of that.
How do we protect against scammers, and is the OGN token used to build trust as well? And then if there is an issue, what's the dispute resolution process look like?
Yeah, that is obviously very important. Even in the latest, our offerings for the identity stuff, like scammers have definitely come in waves. And the good news is most of them are pretty easy to detect, but there are more sophisticated ones out there. For arbitration or mediation in like a process, someone says the bike they bought was defective or the apartment they rented was dirty, et cetera. Right now we have a quite centralized solution, which is just Origin arbitrates, but we're closely watching projects out there that do truly decentralized arbitration, and we think that's going to be a really exciting thing in the future.
It's certainly one of the big problems that needs to be solved, as well as the oracles and how we get the data into the blockchain in a trusted fashion. So the other things that I saw were the virtual meetups. So talk to me about those.
Yeah, we've been really busy to sort of educate. Well, in the early days, we did lots of flying around to give meetups and hosting them around the world, and that was a lot of fun, but also really tiring, especially for a small team, which is trying to build.
Yes.
And as I'm sure you would appreciate, we discovered the power of just online video, and you can just reach directly into these communities. And so we've really been surprised at the turnout and the enthusiasm for identifying some a meetup or a group or a company anywhere in the world that is interested in blockchain and marketplaces, and we can kind of get them up to speed in a few minutes on our DApp and have them make a listing and buy a listing and go through the whole process. And it's everyone from people who know zero about crypto, and it's just exciting for them to for the first time purchase something using crypto is pretty exciting, up to pretty sophisticated developers who are maybe thinking about building something on our platform.
Yeah. And where are your biggest communities? Do you have a decent community in Australia, or what countries are you looking to roll this out in first?
I wonder. I have not. Now I can plead the I'm a developer card, but I know that we're big in China. One of Micah, our product manager, is in South Korea right now, and getting a huge response there. I know we have a big presence there. Also in Japan, and Russia, of course.
Yeah.
And those are probably the biggest hotspots outside of the US.
Yeah. Well, everyone's pretty obsessed with crypto in Australia, and there's lots of people asking me to get you on the channel. So there are some fans in Australia. So what else excites you on the future roadmap, other updates coming and that sort of thing?
Let's see. A common problem across the crypto space that a lot of people are working on is figuring out basically a way to pay the gas for other users.
Yeah.
So we're investigating meta transactions and other ways to reduce that. I think at this point it's a pretty obvious design flaw. No offense, but in the Ethereum blockchain, that in a situation like Origin would be more than happy to pay the gas fee for someone who wants to just register themselves and their identity. And we can, say they've proven themselves that they are this Facebook person, they have this many friends, and they've proven that they have this Gmail account and they have this phone number. Origin would be more than happy to pay the 5 cents to.
This is something that they're working on. I just got back from EdCon, and this is an exact problem where they want you guys to be able to pay the gas fee, to onboard, and to even make the little sales. And I was going to ask, are you guys looking at the second layer solutions, or the number of transactions you're doing in a marketplace isn't going to get into the thousands per second just yet, and the Ethereum base chain is pretty good? Or
yeah, Ethereum is good enough right now. The number of transactions is not high enough for that to be a worry just yet. We're keeping our eye on that stuff, but for now, that's not the. To be honest, again, user friction and getting people onto the system is the bigger problem.
Yeah, and a lot of projects we talk to are facing that problem, and even just the fact that you've got to use Metamask or something. We're still a long way there, but I think every project is still a long way there.
Exactly, and that's where when I go to a conference or even on podcasts like this, I take comfort in knowing how many really smart people are working on this problem. And we've got a really great team at Origin, but it's great to know there's other people out there, and best practices tend to get picked up and distributed around pretty quickly.
Are there any projects you're looking to partner with, or do you think some of these big companies are going to adopt this style of technology, or you are going to truly disrupt them?
As far as the incumbent centralized players, if I were to play the profit role again, I would bet probably against them adopting it. I kind of like the analogy of, newspapers were not the first people to start making web pages when it came out. They weren't the ones that made the successful transition. AOL was not the company that made shaped the early internet. So I think the trend is more for the incumbents to try to hold on to the old way, and the new revolutionaries to kind of come up from the bottom.
Yeah, and it's funny because people often use Uber or Airbnb as these examples that have disrupted industries, but they've still got a company and a middleman that's taking a big cut. It's not actually until we get peer-to-peer software that things become truly decentralized, and that's the protocol that you guys are building, I guess.
Exactly.
Awesome. Any final thoughts for everyone at home? I've enjoyed our chat today, Stan.
No, just that we'd love for people to try out our DApp. It's live and up and running, and we've put a lot of work into it. I think it looks pretty slick. If you just want to see an example of what a cutting edge marketplace can look like that uses blockchain.
And I think we're going to get some crypto merchandise up there ourselves. So I'll put all the links to it in the description below. Thanks for joining us, Stan.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex.
Cheers, guys.